Earth had always prided itself on being a peaceful planet, a hub of diverse cultures and technology, working toward unity and understanding. But all of that was about to change. It had started with a diplomatic mission, one that seemed routine at first. A human delegation had been sent to an alien planet known for its peaceful stance toward Earth. Lila, a young woman in her early 20s, was among the delegation. She was there to strengthen the bond between Earth and the alien species. Lila had always dreamed of travel, of seeing the stars, and the opportunity to represent Earth in this peaceful mission was a dream come true for her. She was bright, optimistic, and full of excitement. But that excitement quickly turned to terror. A peaceful exchange of ideas turned into a nightmare when the alien government, which had long pretended to be friendly, suddenly turned hostile. They had been planning the attack for weeks. When Lila and the others were captured, the aliens didn't waste any time. They immediately put them through unspeakable torture, intending to break their spirit, destroy their will, and send a message to Earth. They would not tolerate interference from humans anymore. Lila's captors were cold and ruthless. They had no intention of keeping her alive, at least not in the way she had been. Their goal was to humiliate Earth, to show that the human race was weak, inferior. They believed that the best way to crush Earth's growing influence was to target its most vulnerable asset, its people. The alien faction had no idea what kind of power they were stirring. Back on Earth, the news of Lila's capture spread like wildfire. The government, which had tried to maintain a calm exterior, was rocked to its core. The situation was worse than anyone could have imagined. The footage of Lila's torture leaked to the media, and it became clear that this wasn't just about a single human. This was about Earth's future. Lila's family, like so many others, was devastated. Her parents watched the footage over and over, unable to do anything to help their daughter. The helplessness they felt was something no parent should ever endure. They begged the government to take action, but the answer was the same every time. We are working on it. Trust us. However, the truth was far darker than they knew. Beneath the surface, the government had a secret. A select group of highly trained individuals, genetically enhanced for physical and mental superiority, had been quietly developed over the years. These soldiers were known only to a few, and their existence was kept under the strictest of secrets. They had been designed for one purpose: to protect Earth at all costs. These soldiers weren't ordinary humans. They were faster, stronger, and more resilient than anyone else. They could endure extreme conditions and perform feats of strength and speed that would be impossible for a regular person. But their most valuable trait wasn't their physical power. It was their loyalty and determination to protect humanity. Captain Jace, the leader of the super soldiers, was one of the first to hear of Lila's capture. He had seen the footage, and something about it stirred something deep within him. Unlike most, he wasn't just angry at the aliens, he was disgusted. This wasn't just an attack on a human. This was an attack on the very core of what Earth stood for. He knew it was time. The government convened a secret meeting with the highest-ranking officials and commanders of the super soldiers. The decision was made. Alpha Strike, the elite group of super soldiers, would be deployed. They were Earth's most powerful weapon, and they were about to be sent on their most dangerous mission yet, to rescue Lila and bring her back safely, no matter the cost. Captain Jace stood in front of the team. His soldiers, each with their own set of unique abilities, listened intently. They were not just warriors. They were Earth's last line of defense. Each member of the squad had been trained for situations like this one, missions that required both strength and subtlety. Listen up, Jace began, his voice calm but commanding. This mission is personal. We're not just going in to save a human, we're going in to send a message. We are not weak. We are not to be messed with. We are Earth's protectors, and we're going to bring Lila back. There was no hesitation. The team had known this moment would come someday. They had trained for it, but no amount of training could prepare them for what was coming. They would face alien forces unlike anything they had ever encountered, and they would be fighting not just for a person's life, but for the pride of an entire planet. As the mission was prepared, Jace looked at each member of his team. There was Reyna, the expert in hand-to-hand combat, able to defeat anyone in close-quarter combat. Then there was Elias, whose telekinetic abilities allowed him to manipulate objects with his mind. Cass, the sharpshooter, never missed her target, no matter the distance. And finally, there was Cade, who had the ability to communicate with machines hacking into enemy systems with ease. They were ready, but what awaited them would be unlike anything they had ever faced. The soldiers boarded their stealth ships, each lost in thought. They knew that the galaxy wasn't kind to Earth. They had seen the growing hostility from alien factions, but this was different. This was personal. Captain Jace's eyes focused on the distant planet, the place where Lila was being held. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by an army of alien soldiers who were determined to break her. The rescue mission would not be easy, and there were no guarantees. But Jace knew one thing for sure: they would not fail. Lila's suffering would not be in vain. Earth's warriors would rise up to defend the innocent. The super soldiers would do whatever it took to rescue her and prove that Earth would not bow to anyone. The countdown began, and the soldiers prepared for the unknown. This was their mission. They would stop at nothing. The air was thick with tension as Alpha Strike, Earth's most elite super soldiers, gathered in their briefing room. They had all trained for years, honing their skills in secret locations across the globe. Now, the time had come for them to face a mission unlike any they had ever encountered before. Captain Jace stood in front of his team, his voice calm but carrying an edge of determination. His soldiers, a mix of the best warriors, scientists, and tech specialists Earth had ever produced, stood at attention, ready for their orders. This mission was personal, not just for them, but for the future of Earth itself. "We're not just going to rescue Lila," Jace said, his eyes scanning the faces of each soldier. "We're going to send a message. Earth will not stand by while its people are tortured. We are going to show the galaxy that we will fight for what's ours." He could see the resolve in their eyes. These were soldiers who had been raised, in the shadows, trained to protect Earth at all costs. They were the last line of defense, and this mission was their calling. One by one, Jace looked at his team. There was Reyna, the hand-to-hand combat expert. No one could defeat her in close-quarters battle. Her reflexes were unmatched, and her ability to read her opponent's moves made her nearly unbeatable. She could neutralize any threat in seconds. Then, there was Elias, the telekinetic. His ability to move objects with his mind was not only a powerful weapon, but also a tool for infiltrating enemy strongholds. He could disarm opponents, disable cameras, and create distractions, all without lifting a finger. His calm demeanor made him a perfect strategist, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Cass, the sharpshooter, was another key member of the team. She could hit a target from miles away with pinpoint precision. Her skill with a rifle made her a deadly force from a distance, and her tactical mind meant she always knew the best spot to take a shot. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. And finally, there was Cade, the hacker. He could communicate with machines, control systems, and break through enemy defenses as easily as breathing. Cade could shut down entire security systems, gain access to vital information, and make their mission a whole lot easier. His mind worked faster than the best computers, and no code was too difficult for him to crack. Each of these soldiers had been trained since childhood, designed for one purpose: to protect Earth and its people. They were more than just soldiers. They were living weapons enhanced with abilities far beyond what any ordinary human could achieve. And now, they were being sent on a mission that could change the course of history. "We'll infiltrate their stronghold under the cover of darkness," Jace continued. "No one can know we're coming. Our goal is simple: get in, get Lila, and get out." The soldiers nodded, each one already picturing the plan in their mind. They had trained for every possible scenario. But this mission was different. The alien faction holding Lila was ruthless and well-prepared. The super soldiers would need to be smarter, faster, and more precise than ever before. "We're up against more than just their soldiers," Jace said. "These aliens think they can break us, but they don't understand who they're dealing with. They've underestimated humanity's willpower, and they've underestimated us. The team remained silent, understanding the gravity of the mission. Earth was depending on them. There was no room for failure. The soldiers boarded their ships, the sleek stealth vehicles designed to go undetected by alien sensors. As they ascended into the sky, the team was silent, each soldier preparing mentally for the challenge ahead. The unknown lay before them, but there was no turning back. As the ships approached the alien planet, the soldiers checked their gear one last time. Reyna tightened her gloves, Cass adjusted the scope on her sniper rifle, and Elias focused his mind. Cade ran through the encryption codes he'd be using to hack into the alien systems once they landed. Jace, as always, was calm and collected, focusing on the mission ahead. The planet below was a war zone, an industrial wasteland filled with towering structures, guarded heavily by alien forces. The aliens were known for their advanced technology and brutal military strategies. But the super soldiers had one advantage the aliens didn't: their unwavering loyalty to each other and their mission. "We move fast and quiet," Jace ordered. "We take out their defenses, disable their patrols, and make our way to Lila's cell. We don't engage unless we have to." As the ships descended, they moved like shadows, blending with the night. The soldiers were invisible, slipping through enemy lines without a sound. They approached the heart of the alien stronghold, a massive fortress surrounded by an army of armed guards and heavily armed robots. Once they landed, the real work began. Cade hacked into the fortress's security systems, unlocking the doors and disabling the cameras. Elias used his telekinesis to move obstacles out of their way, silently clearing paths for the team. Reyna led the charge, her strength and combat skills taking down any enemy soldiers who tried to stop them. Cass provided cover from a distance, taking out any threats before they even had a chance to react. The team moved like a well-oiled machine, working in perfect harmony. They had trained together for years, and their coordination was flawless. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they worked together to overcome any obstacle in their way. But the deeper they went into the fortress, the more dangerous the mission became. The alien forces were not about to let a small group of humans invade their stronghold without a fight. The sound of alarms echoed through the halls, and the soldiers knew they had to move quickly before the entire compound was alerted. "This is it," Jace said, his voice low but firm. "We're almost there. Keep your focus." They pressed on, the tension building as they neared the holding cells where Lila was being kept. The soldiers knew they had to act fast. Time was running out, and if they didn't find Lila soon, their chances of escape would be slim. With every step, the stakes grew higher. Alpha Strike had one chance, and they couldn't afford to fail. The fate of Lila, and possibly Earth, rested on their shoulders. The silent hum of the stealth ships grew louder as Alpha Strike neared the heart of the alien stronghold. The soldiers' faces were hard, determined, and focused. This was no longer a mission. It was a war against time. They could already feel the weight of their responsibility pressing on their shoulders. If they didn't move quickly, Lila would be lost and their planet would be at risk. Captain Jace's eyes scanned the terrain below as the ship descended slowly, avoiding detection by the alien sensors. The city spread beneath them like a maze of dark towers and shadowed streets. The only light came from harsh neon signs flickering on the edges of tall, narrow buildings. The alien faction's fortress was the largest structure in the city, and it loomed like a dark monolith in the center, surrounded by high walls and layers of security. "Stealth mode active," Cade whispered from the back of the ship, his fingers flying over his tablet. He was already hacking into the fortress's security systems, bypassing layers of defenses with ease. Cade was Earth's best hacker, and his job was vital for their survival. He had to disable cameras, lock systems, and even control the security drones patrolling the area. They touched down on a secluded rooftop just outside the fortress's main walls. The team disembarked, moving swiftly and silently. Reyna, with her sharp instincts and heightened senses, led the way, her movements almost ghostly as she surveyed the area below. She was the first to drop into the shadows, her agile body blending with the dark corners of the city. "Stay close," Jace said, his voice barely a whisper but carrying the weight of command. He moved like a shadow, his eyes scanning every corner, every building, watching for any movement. He knew they couldn't afford to make a mistake. One wrong move, and the entire alien garrison would be on high alert. Elias was next, his mind already in tune with the environment. His telekinesis made him an invaluable asset on missions like this. He could move objects, disarm enemies, or create distractions, all without lifting a finger. He used his abilities now, silently pushing aside loose debris to clear the path, as the team made their way through the alien city. Cass was last, her sniper rifle slung across her back, her keen eyes constantly scanning the distance for any sign of trouble. Her job was to provide long-range support. If anything went wrong, she was ready to cover the team from above, picking off enemies before they even had a chance to react. They moved through the streets in perfect synchronization, using their environment to their advantage. The city was quiet, but there was an underlying tension. The aliens didn't trust anyone, and the fortress was heavily guarded. But the soldiers knew their training had prepared them for this moment. They had faced tougher odds before. As they approached the outer walls of the fortress, Cade's fingers moved quickly across his tablet. He accessed the fortress's mainframe once again, sending out a surge of commands that disabled the main security, cameras in the area. The walls, however, were still a challenge. They were tall, lined with sharp metal spikes and reinforced with high-tech shields that would block any attempt to scale them. "Elias, take care of that," Jace ordered. Elias nodded. He extended his hand, his brow furrowed with concentration. The metal gates creaked, groaned, and then slowly pulled back just enough for the team to slip through. Elias was always calm under pressure, his telekinetic powers bending the metal like it was nothing more than paper. The team slipped through the gap in the gates and into the fortress's shadowed courtyard. They were now inside the main compound, but they weren't safe yet. They had to make their way to the holding cells where Lila was being kept. Every second counted. "Keep your eyes peeled," Jace murmured. "This is where things get tricky." They pressed forward, taking cover, behind large crates and stacks of alien equipment. The air was thick with the scent of oil and metal, and the sound of alien chatter echoed faintly in the distance. The team's movements were swift, barely a whisper in the stillness. As they approached the main building, they encountered their first obstacle, a pair of alien soldiers on patrol. The soldiers wore heavy armor and carried energy rifles. They were scanning the area, and it was only a matter of time before they would pass by the team. Reyna motioned for the others to stop. She crouched low and signaled Elias. Without a word, Elias reached out with his telekinetic power, pulling the soldiers' weapons out of their hands. They spun around in confusion, unsure of what had happened. Before they could react, Reyna was on them, her swift movements taking them down with a series of quick, efficient strikes. In mere seconds, the alien soldiers lay unconscious on the ground. The team continued their advance, moving deeper into the fortress. The walls grew closer, and the sound of distant alarms began to rise. The aliens were starting to realize something was wrong. Time was running out. "They're waking up," Cade said, his voice tight. "We need to move faster." They reached the first of the holding cells. The door was made of thick metal and had a heavy security lock. Cade stepped forward, his fingers dancing over the controls on his wrist device. Within moments, the lock clicked open, and the door slid open with a low hiss. Inside, they found a group of human prisoners, their faces gaunt and tired, but none of them was Lila. The team quickly searched for signs of her presence. "We've got to keep going," Jace said. "She's close, I can feel it." The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. The team froze, their bodies tensing. There were more alien soldiers coming their way. "We'll take the left path," Reyna whispered. "You go right." Without another word, the team split up. They moved swiftly and quietly, using their training to avoid detection. Jace led his part of the team down the narrow hallway, his eyes scanning for any sign of Lila. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. The tension was unbearable. They could hear the soldiers getting closer, their footsteps growing louder. But still, they pressed on. knowing that failure wasn't an option. And then, just ahead, Jace spotted a door. It was slightly ajar, and the dim light from inside spilled into the hallway. He motioned for the others to follow. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Lila was inside. The door creaked open slowly, its hinges barely making a sound. Jace's heart raced as he motioned for the team to stay low and quiet. The room beyond was dimly lit, casting long shadows across the floor. He could see a figure slumped against the far wall. At first it was hard to make out, but as they stepped closer, the silhouette became clearer. It was Lila. She was sitting on the cold stone floor, her hands chained to the wall. Her head was bowed, and her long hair fell over her face, hiding her expression. She was bruised, thin, and looked like she hadn't seen the light of day for what must have been days. But there was something else in her eyes, a quiet strength. "Lila," Jace whispered, stepping forward cautiously. At the sound of her name, Lila's head snapped up. Her eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. For a moment she couldn't believe what she was seeing. But then her eyes softened as she recognized the soldiers standing before her. "Are you—" Her voice was weak, barely a whisper, but there was no mistaking the hope in her tone. "Yes, we're here to rescue you," Jace replied, kneeling beside her. "We're getting you out of here." Lila blinked, her eyes filling with tears. I didn't think anyone would come." "Of course we did," Jace said firmly, reaching up to touch her arm gently. "No one gets left behind." The rest of the team stood nearby, ready to act. Elias, with his telekinetic powers, began moving toward the chains that held Lila in place. As he approached, he focused, his brow furrowing with concentration. The chains rattled as they lifted from the wall, then fell away in a single motion. Lila winced as the chains fell to the floor, with a loud clatter. She stood shakily, her legs weak from the torture she had endured, but her resolve was stronger than ever. Her gaze turned to the soldiers around her, a strange mixture of gratitude and disbelief in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, taking a step toward them. "I didn't think I'd ever see Earth again." "You will," Jace assured her. "We're not leaving without you." But before they could move, the sound of footsteps echoed from the corridor. The team froze, their muscles tensing in instinctive preparation. Jace motioned for them to stay silent. They were too close to being discovered. It wouldn't take long for the alien soldiers to realize something was wrong. "We need to move now," Cass said under her breath, her hand on the sniper rifle slung across her back. "If we stay here much longer, we'll be trapped." The team quickly gathered around Lila. Jace kept his voice low but firm. "Stay close. Don't make a sound." Reyna took the lead, her eyes scanning the hall outside. She signaled to the others, and they moved like shadows, slipping through the corridors toward the exit. They moved swiftly, knowing time was running out. As they neared the main exit, they encountered their first real challenge. The corridor was blocked by a group of alien soldiers. They stood in the way, chatting in a language the soldiers didn't understand. It was clear that they were guarding this particular part of the stronghold, and there was no way around them without being seen. "We'll have to fight," Jace said, his voice cold and steady. "Reyna, take them out quietly. Cass, cover her. Elias, Cade, ready yourselves." Reyna nodded. Her movements were quick and precise as she moved forward, almost blending into the darkness. With a fluid motion, she attacked the nearest alien soldier, knocking him unconscious before he had a chance to react. Cass raised her rifle, taking out the second soldier from a distance, her shot hitting the target with deadly accuracy. Elias, standing back, used his telekinetic abilities to lift the remaining soldier off the ground and slam him against the wall, knocking him out cold. The team moved forward, their hearts pounding, but the situation wasn't over yet. The sound of alarms blared in the distance, signaling that the fortress had been breached. The soldiers were on high alert now, and the countdown to escape had begun. "We've got company," Cade said, his voice sharp. He was already at work, hacking into the security systems again. I've got the cameras offline for now, but we need to move fast before they lock everything down. Lila's face was pale, but she kept pace with the team, her eyes flicking nervously as they moved through the darkened hallways. She knew the danger was far from over, but with each step, she felt a growing sense of relief. These soldiers were her only hope, and she was finally free from the nightmare she had been living in. As they reached the main doors, they found another set of guards waiting for them. These were different, larger, more heavily armed. Their armor was built to withstand direct attacks, and they carried energy rifles that could cut through metal. There was no way to sneak past them this time. "We fight," Jace said firmly. "Stay in position and don't let them get the upper hand." The soldiers spread out, each taking a position that made the most sense for their unique skills. Reyna moved in close, striking first with her powerful combat skills. She disarmed one of the guards in a flash, but the other two reacted quickly, raising their rifles. Cass took aim from the side, taking out one of the guards with a precise shot. The remaining soldier turned to face her, but before he could react, Elias used his telekinesis to knock him off balance, sending him crashing into the walls. "We're clear," Cade said, his fingers flying over his tablet once more. "The exit's open. Let's move." The team rushed through the doors, making their way toward the hangar where their ships were waiting. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them, but they were so close now. Every second felt like an eternity, but they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Lila's breath came in ragged gasps, but she kept up with the team. She was free now, and nothing was going to stop her from getting home. The hangar was just ahead. The soldiers had a clear path, but they knew there was no time to waste. The enemy would be right behind them. As they boarded the ships, Jace looked at Lila, his eyes filled with quiet determination. "You're going home." And with that, they lifted off into the dark skies, leaving the alien stronghold behind. The mission wasn't over yet, but the hardest part was done. They had rescued Lila and they were taking her home. The engines of the stealth ships hummed as they rocketed away from the alien stronghold, the towering walls of the fortress quickly disappearing in the distance. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. They had done it. They had rescued Lila. But the mission was far from over. Now came the hardest part: escaping the enemy's radar and getting back to Earth without being caught. Captain Jace sat in the cockpit of the lead ship, his hands steady on the controls as he monitored the ship's systems. He could feel the weight of the mission on his shoulders, but there was a calm resolve in his expression. They had succeeded so far, but now they had to make it home. "We're not out of the woods yet," Jace said, his voice low but firm. He glanced over at Reyna, who was seated next to him, her eyes scanning the display in front of her. "What's our status?" Reyna's sharp eyes flicked over the ship's readouts. "We're clear of their radar for now, but we've got incoming drones. They'll be on us soon." Jace's jaw tightened. The aliens weren't going to let them get away that easily. They had to get through the next few minutes without being detected. "Elias," Jace called, turning to the telekinetic soldier. "Can you interfere with their systems?" Elias nodded, his expression focused. "I'll try." His fingers twitched as he reached out with his mind, attempting to disrupt the alien drone's communication and tracking systems. The ships flew silently through space, but Jace knew the aliens had to be on high alert. The drones would soon be joined by more powerful ships. Their stealth mode would only hold for so long before the enemy discovered them. Cass, sitting in the back of the ship with a rifle ready, spoke up. "I'm not saying I don't trust Cade's hacking skills, but we might need to prepare for a fight. They won't let us just leave." Jace nodded. "Agreed, get ready." Cade, the team's hacker, worked his fingers quickly over his tablet, trying to break into the alien communications network. "I'm still trying to jam their systems," he said, his voice calm but tense. "But it's going to take some time. We're not flying under the radar anymore." The ship shook slightly as a blast from a drone hit the hull. The shields held for now, but the sound of the impact made everyone tense. "We've been spotted," Jace said. "Brace for impact." The ship jolted again as another blast hit, this time harder. The shields flickered, barely holding up. The enemy wasn't pulling punches now. The drones were circling, getting ready for another attack. Reyna stood, moving, with practiced ease. She pulled on her gear and checked her weapons. We can't let them take us down now. Jace's eyes flicked to the display in front of him, tracking the incoming threat. We're going to break through. Stay focused. The ships veered sharply, dodging another blast, narrowly escaping the incoming attack. The alien drones were relentless, but the team wasn't giving up without a fight. Elias, we need to disable those drones, Jace ordered. Now. Elias raised his hand and his eyes narrowed in concentration. The drones began to wobble as he reached out, using his telekinetic powers to disrupt their flight paths. One by one, the drones started to falter, their movements becoming erratic as Elias took control. Cass moved to the ship's weapons control, aiming her rifle out of the side window. She fired a series of shots, hitting one of the drones squarely. It exploded in a flash of light, its pieces scattering in space. We've got them off our tail for now, Elias said, his voice strained from the effort. But we've got more incoming, it's not over yet. Keep it up, Jace urged, and we're almost through. As they broke through the cloud of drones, the ship sped into open space, heading toward the safety of Earth's atmosphere. But the enemy wasn't going to let them escape so easily. From the corner of his eye, Jace saw several larger alien ships emerge from the shadows, their weapons charging up. They were preparing for a full-scale attack. The situation had become critical. The team needed to get to Earth, but the alien ships were closing in fast. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Jace commanded, his voice steady. We're not done, yet. The ships began to swerve and weave through the stars, twisting and turning in tight formations to avoid the alien fire. The larger ships unleashed waves of blasts, trying to overwhelm their defenses. Reyna was already on the move, checking her weapons and preparing for the worst. If it comes to a fight, we're ready. But Jace had a different plan. He wasn't going to let this escalate into an all-out battle. The only way to escape was to get into the planet's atmosphere, where the enemy ships would have a harder time following. We're going in, Jace said, determination in his eyes. Hold on. He pushed the ship's engines to their limits, diving toward Earth's atmosphere. The alien ships followed, trying to stay close, but the speed and agility of the stealth ships gave them an advantage. The team held their breath as they entered the atmosphere, the air outside growing, thick and turbulent. The ships shook violently as they passed through the layers of the atmosphere, the outside air heating up around them. They could hear the hum of the engines working at full power, the sound of their shields straining to hold. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, they broke through the clouds and emerged into the clear sky above Earth. The enemy ships, unable to match their speed and agility in the atmosphere, were left far behind. We made it, Cass said, her voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Jace let out a slow breath, his eyes scanning the horizon. We're not out of danger yet, but we've got a little time. They flew on in silence for a few moments, allowing the tension to ease. They had made it back to Earth. They had rescued Lila and fought their way out of the enemy's grasp. The mission was not yet over, but for now, they had won. The blue and green orb of Earth appeared before them, a sight that would never fail to bring a sense of relief. As the stealth ships broke through the upper atmosphere, the crew felt the weight of the mission begin to lift. But the danger wasn't over. The alien forces were still out there, and they knew that once Earth's enemies recovered from their loss, they would come for revenge. Jace sat at the helm of the ship, his gaze fixed on Earth below. His mind raced with the events of the last few hours. They had made it out, they had brought Lila home, but the price was still unclear. What would the consequences of their actions be? Earth had just revealed its secret weapon to the galaxy, and Jace knew there would be those who would never forgive that. Captain, Reyna's voice interrupted his thoughts. We're clear of any remaining enemy ships. We've made it. Jace nodded but didn't relax. We're not safe yet. Let's just get to the drop zone. The team had been through too much to let their guard down now. They had fought hard, but the true battle was just beginning. As they approached the designated landing site, Jace couldn't help but glance at Lila, who had been silent for most of the journey. Her face had regained some of its color, but there was still a distant look in her eyes. It was clear the ordeal had taken its toll on her. Lila sat in the back of the ship, her hands gripping the armrest. She had been through unimaginable pain, but now she was free. There was an overwhelming sense of gratitude mixed with confusion. Her mind was still processing everything that had happened. The aliens who had tortured her. Her mind kept returning to them. How could they do that to someone like her? Lila looked up at Jace, who was focused on his controls. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice full of emotion. Jace turned slightly, meeting her eyes. "You don't need to thank us. We did what we had to do." But Lila shook her head. "No, I do. You saved me. I thought I would never see Earth again." "Welcome back," Jace replied simply. He meant it. The ship descended toward Earth's surface, and the team prepared to land. The mission had been a success, but they all knew the challenges were far from over. The galaxy would soon know of Earth's secret weapon, and Earth's enemies would not take this revelation lightly. The ships touched down with a soft thud, and the team disembarked, moving quickly toward the secure facility awaiting them. The ground crew was already on standby, ready to take over the mission. As they moved through the corridors of the facility, Jace felt a familiar weight settle over him. It was the weight of responsibility, of knowing that things had changed forever. Earth was no longer a quiet, unsuspecting planet in the vast universe. They had made their presence known. Back in the command room, high-ranking officials of Earth's military waited for them. They had been following the team's progress through secure channels, but now it was time for the final debriefing. The team had done their job, but there were questions that needed to be answered. As Jace and the team entered the room fell silent. The officials, all wearing stern expressions, stood to acknowledge the team's arrival. "Captain Jace," General Thompson began, "you and your team have successfully completed a mission of extraordinary importance. You've rescued a civilian and brought her home safely. However, you've also revealed Earth's most valuable asset to the galaxy. We need to understand the implications of what's happened." Jace stood tall, his posture straight. He had known this moment was coming. "We did what needed to be done. Lila's life was on the line, and we weren't going to let her be another casualty of this war." General Thompson nodded, but didn't seem convinced. "You've made a powerful enemy. The alien faction that holds influence across several systems will want retaliation. We can expect them to target Earth itself." There was a long silence in the room. The reality of their situation began to sink in. The aliens would not forgive Earth's interference. They would come, and when they did, Earth would need to be ready. "We've prepared for this," Jace said, his voice steady. "Alpha Strike will be ready. We won't back down." General Thompson's gaze hardened. "You've shown that Earth has the capability to fight back, but now we need to make sure we're not isolated. We'll need allies or we will face this enemy alone." Jace nodded. It was a cold truth. The galaxy was vast, and there were many powerful factions out there. The super soldiers had always operated in secrecy, but now they were Earth's most valuable asset. Earth's status in the galaxy had shifted, and they would need to decide how to navigate this new world of interstellar politics and warfare. "Have we heard from Lila?" Raina asked, turning to the general. General Thompson nodded. "She's safe. Medical teams are seeing to her needs. She'll be debriefed soon." Lila's voice echoed in Jace's mind. She had endured so much, and yet she had come out the other side stronger. He couldn't help but feel proud of her, of the way she had held on through the worst of it. She had been their light during the darkest moments of the mission, a reminder of what they were fighting for. As the debriefing continued, Jace kept his thoughts focused. The aliens wouldn't stop until they had retribution. They would be back, and the next fight would be even harder. But Jace knew one thing. Earth's super soldiers were ready for whatever came next. Alpha Strike was stronger than ever, and together they would face the challenges ahead. For Earth, for humanity. The galaxy had learned a powerful lesson today, and it was one they would never forget.